Dave Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City covers the Eagles. And, Dave, you were around Mr. Pederson today after 2 straight losses. Let me start with that. Do you sense a different Doug Pederson after 2 straight losses than the guy who won 3 straight?
No, he's pretty much the same guy. He's been known to be a guy who kind of like stays the course and looks at the big picture, doesn't get too high or too low based on a win or a loss. And, you know, obviously the Eagles are riding high there for a while, but it's come back down to earth a little bit. But he hasn't shown any signs of like panic or disappointment or anything. But maybe if the losses keep piling up, there might be a change. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when these coaches are winning, they answer your questions, they're a little bit more open, and then when they start losing, the answers get a little quicker, a little shorter, a little bit more temperamental. You're not sensing that from him just yet.
No, not too much. He's still pretty much the same guy. He doesn't give you a whole lot anyway, but he does actually think before he speaks though, which is a nice change. And he's not acting arrogant or anything like his predecessor did, and doesn't talk down to us, which was another problem that I thought Chip had. But he's still pretty much calm, focused, getting ready for the next game.
Dave Weinberg's with us. Eagles back at practice today. I do want to get quickly, before we move ahead to Minnesota, get your overview of what you saw in Washington and some of your takes from that game.
Sure. Oh, yeah, I should preface Pederson by saying I think he has gotten a little bit tired of answering the questions about Halapuli Vaitai.
Well, guess what? Since you're not him, I'll ask you questions about him in a minute.
Right. Yeah, I just thought that was my main takeaway from the Redskins game was, well, there were 2. One, he had no business being out on the field. And 2, the defense really came up short. I thought that was they showed some cracks in the armor, and Jim Schwartz is no longer the hot topic as the next guy to get an NFL head coaching job.
Yes, that's interesting how quickly things change. What has happened with Jim? Because you're right, Schwartz was a hot topic. Oh, he's going to get a head coaching job. This guy was a good and it's not like he was a young kid who's come in and surprised people. He's been a good coordinator in Buffalo. He was a good coordinator in head coach running the defense in Detroit. He was a good coordinator in Tennessee. So he's not a surprise. But what's changed over the last couple of weeks with that defense?
Well, I think not having Leardis McKelvin out there on a consistent basis hurts them a lot. They just don't have a whole lot of depth at corner. I'm not really sold on Jalen Mills at all, as Deshaun Jackson showed you on Sunday. Also, the penalties have been a real problem. They just can't. Every time they seem to make a play, they seem to commit a stupid foul or a questionable foul sometimes, but they just can't. They keep committing the penalties that extend drives and keep them on the field. Fletcher Cox being the main culprit. He's had pretty costly personal fouls the last 2 weeks in a row. He's got to play, much more disciplined if they're going to have success. I mean, when he's on and he's focused, he's one of the top defensive players in the league, but he just can't have those kind of back-breaking mistakes like that. And the pass rush, too. They didn't get any sacks on Kirk Cousins, and that's something they really need to correct.
Yeah, Dave, you were on the beat a couple of years ago, obviously, when Washburn was here, and there was a lot of talk about his Y9. Things different? Is this a different version of it? Because that Y9 had big problems stopping the run, and when they got to that year, correct me if I'm wrong, they had a lot of sacks. They got to the quarterback and sacked them, but it just wasn't consistent.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing, I guess. But you ask any defensive coordinator or any defensive player, their number one priority is to stop the run. And if they can do that, the team gets a lead, then they can pin their ears back a little bit. That definitely wasn't the case on Sunday. I think the Redskins ran for 230 yards, something like that, which is an embarrassment if you're a defensive player. So, and
Pederson questioned their pride.
Yeah, he did. Yep. It's gonna. There's a lot on the line on Sunday against the Vikings, I think. And I was talking to Brandon Graham and Connor Barwin today and a few other defensive players, and they kind of all realize that this is like the game where they kind of have to make a stand as a defense, that if they want to be considered, one of the top units with the Vikings and some other teams, are going to have to start playing like it's starting this week.
Dave Weinberg's with us from the Press of Atlantic City. Let's talk about Vaitai, because I have expressed a lot of head scratching with this as well. To me, now he said he gives us our best chance to win. I'm fearful of that because this guy wasn't active now for 4 games. Now I understand that a lot of times if you just play one position, they're not going to activate you on game day. But my reasoning to bring that up is because if Lane Johnson was to get hurt in the middle of a game, they wouldn't have had a problem moving pieces around, and yet he didn't want to move pieces around when Vaitai was clearly struggling. So that's where I find that this decision really falls in Pederson's lap, and if it doesn't work out, he's going to get a lot of the criticism here.
Yeah, it's kind of almost like, when they threw Winston Justice out there a few years ago where he clearly wasn't ready either, and they kind of stuck with him. And we've been through this, it seems like every week almost now, where I just don't get why they're not doing it, why they're not moving Barbary to right tackle and putting Stefan Wisniewski in at left guard. Because Wisniewski has played the position before. He started 16 games for Oakland as a rookie in 2011 there. He can clearly play it, and even he's the one who's really frustrated. He can't understand why he's not getting a shot either, and I don't blame him because Vaitai's just not ready yet. I mean, he looked lost out there the other day, and he's going to wind up getting Wentz hurt if he keeps playing the way he's playing.
Did he seem lost after the game? I mean, obviously he spoke. He's a quiet guy, but did he seem like a guy, a deer in the headlight?
He seemed upset. And I don't blame him. I guess you kind of. I don't want to say he was like overwhelmed by it, but I think he kind of knew. It was kind of weird because he said he was surprised by how much different the games are than practice. Well, that's not like the best thing to say in that situation. You might want to just keep saying, he said, I learned a lot and I'll grow from this, but. If you're going to throw like Brian Bremen out there during practice to emulate Ryan Kerrigan, and then you go against Ryan Kerrigan, that's a big drop ball. I
love in the NFL when like the 53rd man on the roster portrays the best player on the other team. It seems like that we're going to bring in our 9th wide receiver and he's going to emulate the quarterback because the quarterback runs. I love when other teams do that. So Brian Bremen's the guy who can't get on your field, but he can emulate Ryan Kerrigan to perfection.
Right. I guess maybe because he's a fast, one of the faster guys, which he's a very good special teams player.
Yeah.
But you would think, then why don't you just take some extra time after practice and maybe put Connor Barwin out there, or even like Marcus Smith, somebody that can rush the passer and see, how Vaitai stands up to that, because he certainly didn't do the job on Sunday, that's for sure.
Well,
it's not going to get any easier this week either.
No, and let me just ask you this then. Is Tobin a better option than Vaitai? Like if they just said, all right, we don't want to move Barbary. He's playing so well, we're not going to move him. But at least let's bring Tobin in, a guy who has some NFL experience. And I asked that question, Dave, because this team, I think, is at a different spot than they were. They're 3-0, 3-1 now 3-2. You don't go with the guy that you want to try to get some game time because, hey, we're not going to be very good. You need to perform because this team has a shot. So you go with the guy who's got some experience, not the guy who's never played. So do you think even Tobin is a better option?
Yeah, I'm with you there. Yeah, he played both left tackle and right tackle, and he's not the best guy, but he can't do any worse. So yeah, and he has some experience. So yeah, I would actually put him out there before I put Vaitai out there. But for whatever reason, Doug and Jeff Stalin, the offensive line coach, they liked what they saw in the second half against the Redskins, but they're going to have to give him a whole lot of help again. I mean, Brent Selleck's not going to be able to run out on any pass routes, and they're going to have to keep another back end to chip on pass rushers and stuff because he definitely can't do it by himself.
Dave Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City is with us, and you mentioned, this is a big week for them. Vaitai, it's not like he's facing the Cleveland defense to kind of get his feet under him this week.
Right.
He's facing maybe the best defense in football, Dave. I mean, do you look at Minnesota as the biggest challenge defensively that this team's going to face?
Yeah, they seem to be. I mean, everybody thought Pittsburgh was going to be really good too, but yeah, I mean, I think they're ranked number 2 overall in the league, and they're number 1 in scoring defense. They have 19 sacks. They really get after the quarterback. They're very well balanced against the run and the pass. So yeah, I think the Eagles' offense really has their work cut out for them here. They're just going to have to hope that they can establish their own running game to maybe get the Vikings defense back on their heels a little bit. It'll really help the Eagles if they can get into a lead and that'll force the Vikings to be a little more conservative, I guess, on defense. But if Minnesota, Bradford gets hot early and Minnesota gets a couple of touchdowns and gets up the lead, boy, then look out for Carson because he's going to take a beating.
Yeah, it's something that another reason why Vaitai is a head scratcher, because you have such an asset behind him. You would think you would want a guy maybe not as physically gifted. I don't know. Vaitai might be physically gifted and physically more imposing than Tobin, but you want a guy who has that savviness, and that's another reason why Wisniewski, makes some more sense, because he is a veteran and he, understands I can't get my quarterback hit back there. I think it's a very puzzling situation. I don't know who Wisniewski pissed off, but it seems like
because I don't know. I guess Barber's playing okay, but I don't think he's going to left. He's not a Pro Bowl left guard or anything. I know they keep saying, he's doing so great, we don't want to move him, but he's played right tackle before. He won't mind switching.
Dave, he started at right tackle when Johnson got suspended the first time.
Yeah, I don't get it. I really don't. That's again, Brian, I'm scratching my head like you're scratching yours.
All right, Dave Weinberg, Press of Atlantic City, is with us here. You write a piece today at pressofac.com. Who would you rather have at quarterback, Bradford or Wentz? And, it's a question that, because Bradford's playing well, might come up, but isn't this one of those classic win-wins for both teams?
Yeah, in the beginning of the season, I didn't think that. I thought that the Eagles made a big mistake. But that was when I thought they were really, truly legitimate contenders. And Bradford, like he's doing with the Vikings, he's the quarterback that can put you over the top, I think. Wentz isn't there yet. But now that you see what their Eagles are, they're a team that's going to win a few games, but I don't think you can consider them a legitimate playoff contender or anything. Then it's probably better off. They're probably better off having Wentz out there now to learn, to get the reps, to getting the experience, and he'll benefit from that, down the line. So, while in the beginning I thought it made more sense to have him sit and watch and learn from Bradford, now that the situation has changed, I think it's probably a good move for both teams. That Bradford gets a chance to lead the Vikings towards the playoffs, and Wentz gets a chance to get some experience.
Yeah, and Bradford, I always had said that I felt that he was a guy who was really hard to judge fairly because of the weird, unique situations that have come up in terms of multiple injuries, multiple coordinators, a bunch of different factors in that. And it's nice to see him settling in out there. What has Doug kind of said this week, knowing that, he knows Doug's offense pretty well? He studied it the whole preseason. In these situations where you have a guy who's so close to your team, is that going to be something that is a factor, or is that being downplayed?
It's kind of being downplayed. You get it every week where there's a guy who was on the team like a year before or 2 years before, and they kind of know everything. But Bradford was he was under Doug's system for like 2 months maybe. So I'm sure there's been some differences, man. Some changes made now that Carson's the guy. So I don't know if he has really deep insights that he can provide to the Minnesota defense. I think they're just going to do what they do. The Vikings are defensively. I don't think they're necessarily picking Sam's brain. Maybe they are. They probably maybe give you a few hints and tips that might help. But pretty much teams just kind of stick to what they know. They don't really rely on on players from the other team too much to give them any kind of trade secrets or anything.
Dave, I want to go back to the offensive line real fast because it is important. And
Sure.
It's not just Vaitai who struggles. Kelsey's another guy who the last 2 years, maybe even more, seems that he's a popular guy because he's kind of out in the public eye and he talks to fans and he might have a couple of cold ones with you if you see him out somewhere, and he might get a pass. But is it time for the Eagles to maybe consider Wisniewski at that position?
I might give him one more game, but yeah. I kind of thought that Kelsey had kind of turned the corner a little bit. I thought he had a really rough start to the year, but I thought maybe against Detroit he played a little bit better, but he seemed to regress again last week. And I think he's dealing with some sort of injury. I forget what it is, but
plantar fasciitis.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and I've had that. That hurts like heck. But still, you have to wonder if there's some changes coming. But if they still view themselves as relevant, then yeah, I think you probably were better off maybe giving Wisniewski a shot there because Kelsey's certainly not playing up to his standards.
Yeah, he's got the left guard spot where he's the backup. He's also the backup at center. He's also the backup at right guard. So Wisniewski has a lot of places that he could fill in. Now, Brandon Brooks has played, relatively well. I mean, he's kind of a guy that,
he's okay.
You don't hear his name a lot. I guess that means he's doing well. What do you think of Peters? How's Peters played? There was a lot of concern about him getting older, that he's been hurt a lot. I think he's played every snap this year, which is a good sign. But is he still playing at that high level?
He's playing at a pretty high level, not up to what he used to be in his prime, I don't think. But he's not the weak link on their offensive line by any stretch. But I can see a scenario where he maybe has a year or maybe two left, and then you might want to start looking for his replacement. You might want to start looking now. But
isn't that replacement Lane Johnson?
Yeah, supposedly, but who knows who knows what his future's going to hold.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Hey,
he's one more suspension away from getting banned for a couple of years, I guess, right?
Dave, give me a guy. Yeah, that's true. 2-year ban he would get if he gets suspended a third time. Give me a guy on the offensive side of the ball you want to see more of.
Duriel Green-Beckham. I think he's got the potential to be a superstar. I really do.
Really?
That play he made against Washington, I think he got called back for a penalty by I don't remember who it was.
The Smallwood block in the back.
There was an invisible phantom call, but I'm really impressed with him. I just think that he's the downfield guy that they're missing, that they've been missing since they got rid of Deshaun. He doesn't look fast because he's so big, but he covers a lot of ground because he's so big. And I think he's more than just a red zone guy to me. I think he's one of those downfield guys. I think he could be like the focal point of your passing game. That's just me personally. I think he's got a load of potential. I really do.
Oh, I echo that because the obvious answer that most people go to was Ertz. Everybody wants to see more Ertz. You got to get Ertz more involved. But Ertz has been here He's been here 3 years. I think he is who he is. Beckham seems like he has that potential, but the Eagles, it seems that they don't want to unleash it yet.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe he just isn't that comfortable with the offense to this point.
Because I see what you see. I see a guy who's got speed. He's physically big. I mean, he seems like he has when he catches the ball after the catch, he's aggressive. He threw that stiff arm. He seems like a guy who can catch the ball in the slot, in the red zone. I agree with you. I'd like to see them feature him a little bit more. I want to ask you about the pass rush. No sacks this past.
One more thing about Ertz real fast, though. I think that trade kind of hurt him more than anybody else because he had established a pretty good rapport with Sam over the offseason. He went out to his home in Oklahoma and worked out. They went to San Diego and he seemed like he had developed a little bit of a chemistry with Sam where he doesn't have that with Carson. I don't know why. Maybe because he missed his 2 games with his rib injury, he hasn't been able to work with him a lot. But I think Ertz is was really hurt by that.
And to compound on that though, real fast, the tight ends were supposed to be a really big part of this offense.
Yeah.
Well, then Ertz gets hurt, Burton was hurt. We've never really seen the 3 guys play, and then they all come back, and then Johnson gets hurt, which I think has changed the dynamic that you would use the tight ends as well, because a lot of times they need now to help Vitae.
Right. That's true. Yeah, they can't use 3 guys in the passing game anymore. That's for sure.
All right, the pass rush, no sacks Sunday against the Redskins. Doug doesn't do a lot with the defense. Now, today, I think he was kind of asked, do you want to see Jim Schwartz blitz some more?
Maybe. You would think they'd have an opportunity to maybe get some sacks this week because both the Vikings tackles are on IR. Khalil and Andre, I forget his last name. Anyway, they have a pair of backups at tackle now, and they just signed Jake Long. That shows you how panicked they are. But the problem with that though is Sam gets rid of the ball so fast that I don't even know if blitzing will help because his release is so quick. He doesn't take a whole lot of time. He doesn't hold on to the ball to let the pass rush get to him. He makes really fast decisions, and so I don't know if blitzing is the answer this week. It might be down the road, though. They do need to get something because I know they've been talking all along about they can get pressure with their front 4, but they're not getting that now. So you might be right. They might need to bring some guys up and maybe attack the quarterback a little bit more with blitzes.
That would be that Andre Smith that the Vikings are
Yeah,
featuring out there. But I
think I remember him.
Yeah, but I think it's an interesting point you bring up, because here's a team that's 5-0 with their 2 starting tackles out, and the Eagles have 1 tackle out, and it's like disrupted everything. And yet, I think that kind of gives you
running back, and wide receivers are hurt and everything.
Yeah, no Diggs 2 weeks ago either. He should be back for this game as well. He's an emerging star in this league, but a lot of storylines. Bradford's back. How do you think he'll be received?
By the fans?
Sure.
Not well. Not well. Although, to be fair, I don't see where he did anything to kind of merit the kind of reaction he's going to get. He was always a pretty much stand-up guy. I mean, I know he rankled some people by the way he handled the offseason this year, but I didn't have any problem with it. I just thought he was right to be upset with the way he was treated. But
it's amazing how, Dave, you and I think a lot alike. That's a little freaky sometimes. You and I are a lot on the same, I mean, I understood why he was angry. I don't particularly like the way he went about it, but I do understand where his frustration came from.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I don't know why the Eagles fans would be so against him. I think it's more of the fact that he's not Carson Wentz. They've been clamoring since they drafted the kid to get him out there, and I think they were ready to move on as soon as that draft pick happened.
Well, it is, I guess, human nature that when you get the new toy, you want to play with that new toy as fast as you can. That old toy gets old real fast when you have that brand new one.
There you go. Yep, that's a good analogy. Yep.
Unless you're married, don't ever get rid of that toy. Keep that toy for as long as you can. Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Dave Weinberg has more at thepressofAtlanticCity.com on this matchup. And check out his piece today, Bradford Wentz, why it's a win-win for both sides. A good piece by Dave over at PressOfAtlanticCity.com. Thank you, Dave.
Oh, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.